WFYI podcast brought to you by Bloomington, Indiana, an American college town offering food and drink, college sports, outdoor activities, live music, cool art, and good times daily. Everyone is welcome in Bloomington. More information at visitbloomington.com.
This is WFYI News Now. It's May 3rd, and I'm Abriana Herron. On today's show, an $11 billion investment from Amazon in St. Joseph County. A court strikes down a law that tried to ban people from telling minors about other states' abortion laws without parental consent. Medicaid changes coming for family caregivers of medically complex children. And Pike Township Schools is asking voters to approve a tax increase in the Tuesday primary.
A law now mandates school districts in certain counties to share proceeds from a voter-approved property tax referendum with charter schools. In this primary, Pike Township in Marion County is the only district required to do this.
Those stories coming up. But first, the Marion County Prosecutor's Office announced 3 charges on Thursday for dealing controlled substances that resulted in death. As Side Effects Public Media's Ben Thorpe reports, officials say the charges aim to put pressure on dealers selling drugs laced with fentanyl.
Law enforcement officials are making use of a 2018 law that allows for higher penalties against dealers if a person they sell drugs to dies. Since the law was passed 6 years ago, only 16 charges have been filed in Marion County, most since January of last year alone. Prosecutor Ryan Mears says the uptick in filings is part of an effort to deter dealers from selling drugs laced with fentanyl.
None of us up here are suggesting that the solution to our drug problem is enforcement and enforcement alone. That's not what we're saying. But we do believe that there's an important part that all of us can play in helping to try to slow down the supply and also deter people from using.
In both Marion County and statewide overall, drug overdose deaths declined from 2022 to 2023. I'm Ben Thorpe.
Governor Eric Holcomb believes New Carlisle's location helped attract an $11 billion investment from Amazon. The planned data center would bring the largest capital investment in Indiana history to a relatively small community in St. Joseph County. Still, Holcomb says it's close to the University of Notre Dame and not far from the country's third largest economy.
And so when you start to snap all the pieces together, the infrastructure, the talent pipelines, what you are actually close to, what you're in between, it starts to really pop off the map.
Holcomb also credits the harmonious relationship between the local community and state economic development entities. A federal court this week permanently struck down a state law that tried to ban people from telling minors about other states' abortion laws without parental consent. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Brandon Smith reports on the latest in a case that dates back to 2017.
Indiana law long required anyone under age 18 to get parental consent for an abortion. The 2017 measure sought to prohibit people from telling minors about other states' abortion laws or helping them in any way to access abortion care outside of Indiana without the required parental consent. Planned Parenthood sued the state, arguing that prohibition violated the First Amendment's right to free speech. A federal court temporarily halted the law before it took effect, and that injunction has remained in place since. A lot has changed in abortion law since 2017, but a federal judge this week ruled that the ban on telling minors about other states' laws or helping them access care elsewhere is still unconstitutional, and the judge permanently struck down that part of the law, ruling the state can't enforce it against Planned Parenthood or its employees. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Brandon Smith at the State House.
Family caregivers of medically complex children will soon no longer be able to provide attendant care, meaning they have to transition to other Medicaid programs. As Indiana Public Broadcasting's Abigail Ruman reports, the Family and Social Services Administration provided updates this week on one of the main programs families can shift to in July.
While attendant care pays caregivers hourly, structured family caregiving pays them per day using a tiered system based on an evaluation of the Medicaid member. Heather Dane is with FSSA's Bureau of Disability Services. For minors currently receiving attendant care, Dane says their structured family caregiving tier will be determined by the amount of authorized attendant care hours they have. She says FSSA is working to complete those assessments by May 30th.
So if you choose to go to structured family care, your care manager will have everything they need to put you in the appropriate level on that July 1 date.
She says any new structured family caregiving recipients will be evaluated with its current tool, but FSSA is developing a tool specifically for the pediatric population that will launch July 1st of 2025. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Abigail Ruman.
The FSSA is hosting webinars every other Wednesday until July 1st to provide updates for Medicaid members under the age of 59, currently on the Aged and Disabled waiver. The next one will be May 15th. And for our final story today, Pike Township Schools is asking voters to approve a tax increase in the Tuesday primary. The money would mostly support teacher pay and student academics, and some could go to local charter schools. From WFYI's Education Desk, Eric Weddle reports that if voters approve, this would be the first time a charter school benefits from a referendum under a recent state law.
A law now mandates school districts in certain counties to share proceeds from a voter-approved property tax referendum with charter schools. In this primary, Pike Township in Marion County is the only district required to do this. A charter school must meet particular requirements to be eligible. They need to enroll students who live in Pike Township and post certain student and staff data on their website. 15 charter schools opted in. But Pike Superintendent Larry Young says it's not for certain that all charters will get a share.
That's something that we are monitoring, and assuming the referendum passes, that we'll attend to that to see actually who qualifies.
Some school choice advocates are raising concern with Young's comments. They say Young has no role in the charters receiving the funds, and the charter schools are following the law. I'm Eric Weddle.
For more on this story, go to WFYI.org/news. That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by the following people who live in your community: Drew Daudelin, Kendall Antron, who composed the music for this podcast, and me, Abriana Herron. Our news director is Sarah Neal-Estes. If you like today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back on Monday.